Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for January 27, 2023, the 4th Estate Edition. And we begin with that story from the Washington Post, as Ukrainian journalists are uncovering Ukrainian corruption. In October, a Ukrainian news outlet shared photos of Ukrainian government officials driving brand new cars donated for humanitarian aid. Indeed, one of the cars was a Porsche. So how can the representatives have Porsches when the country is in ruins? So once again, the 4th Estate shows its role in the worldwide fight against bribery and corruption by uncovering corruption. Next up, in a very interesting story from the Financial Times, Morgan Stanley has fined its employees for using ephemeral messaging, with financial penalties running up to $1 million for employees for conducting business on WhatsApp and other penalties. The forfeiture comes as banks try to punish employees for a scandal that resulted in Morgan Stanley paying a fine of $200 million last year. The fines range from a few thousand to $1 million per individual based on an internal point system. This is a very interesting development and could significantly lead to employee fines in other areas. Next up, from New York Times Dealbook, Hindenburg Research strikes again, accusing the Indian company Adani Group of orchestrating the largest con in corporate history. When you consider FTX, Enron, WorldCom, that's saying a lot. And the Indian company is now accused of a brazen stock manipulation and accounting fraud, literally running over decades. The company, of course, says Hindenburg is just plain wrong, but the track record of Hindenburg Research is really quite impressive. And when they say somebody is engaged in fraud and they take a short position, it's something that you definitely need to listen to. And it's also taking on Asia's richest man. And our final story today comes to us from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal. Dylan Tokar reporting that banks have been warned to be on the lookout for Russian oligarchs attempting to circumvent U.S. sanctions by investing in U.S. commercial real estate. The Treasury warned. Wealthy Russians with ties to the Kremlin are trying to use shell corporations and other tricks to obfuscate their purchase of commercial and probably private real estate in the United States. So banks have been put on notice, and if they loan money, they need to do significant due diligence on any shell corporations that appear. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.